Welcome to the Art of Healing with your host, Dr. Judy Jasek of Animal Healing Arts and Matt Rowe of ParsleyPet. During our show, we are talking about your pet's health, raw feeding, and alternative treatments for cancer, unexplained illnesses, and supporting your pet's natural ability to heal. Welcome, Dr. Judy, to this week's show.
Thanks, Matt. Great to be here.
So this week we're talking about CBD. And, and as we talked before the show is CBD is just, we've been in the industry for 7 years and we were right at the beginning parts of CBD and it was the wild, wild west. It was everybody that was extracting from the hemp plant and they were creating CBD following the government regulations of not having THC in there, but they were just putting everything into the product. I mean, you didn't know if the product was coming from China. You didn't know if the product was local. And it was just, they were just trying to infiltrate the market with CBD because there is a benefit to CBD for your pet. So what I want to talk a little bit about today is the benefits of using CBD, where you should look at dosages and making sure you're not giving too much to your pet and the dangers if you do, if there are any. And also taking a look at how do I know if I'm buying the right CBD? So let's start with that first one is really taking a look at is what is, the benefits of using CBD?
Well, we have, and our pets have, actually all mammals have what is known as an endocannabinoid system in the body, which means that we have the receptors for the constituents that are in the CBD, in the hemp plant. So it's always seemed to me, well, gosh, if we have these receptors, like this is something that our body is meant to take in, that there has to be benefit because these receptors are literally in every organ system of the body. And they're doing so much research. I mean, there's new information coming out all the time now on this as researchers look at these different receptors, and they're learning that different receptors will bind better to different constituents of the plant. So CBD is just one cannabinoid, what we call one constituent of the plant. There's hundreds of different cannabinoids in the plant. And so we know about CBD and THC. Those are probably the best known, but there's CBG and CBN and all sorts of other ones. And they're trying to work out which ones are more effective for different conditions. And I think as time goes on, we're going to learn a lot more about how these different constituents can affect different parts in the body and different systems in the body. The benefits, though, that I see in my practice, some of the biggest ones are pain. It is great. It's a great pain reliever. It's pain relief and anti-inflammatory. So for older dogs, they're just starting to slow down. They're a little achy, a little slow moving, rather than putting them right on the more conventional pain killers. I like to put them on CBD, and maybe we will need to move into something stronger over time. But if they're on the CBD, a lot of times they won't need as much of a more conventional painkiller. So that's a big use. I work with a lot of cancer patients, and the CBD has proven anti-cancer effects. It can actually help shrink tumors. So I put all my cancer patients on it. It's great for anxiety. It can help. And as we were talking before the show, this can get a little tricky with the dosing. You need to be aware of what is the most appropriate dose for your pet, because it's not a one size fits all. And each product that you get will affect your pet a little bit differently. But I would say pain, treating chronic illnesses such as cancer and anxiety are probably the top things that I use it for.
And you mentioned something about dosages, and I want to take a step back to that because Leo recently, if you watch the show and you follow us, Leo got injured. And so instead of putting him on pain medication, with your help, we decided to put him on CBD.
Mm-hmm.
And so now we had something. So we had the topical that went on top of the wound. And then we also gave it orally as well through his food. And so, but with it, when you're looking at dosages, one thing I noticed is I misdosed Leo early on, and he became very excitable. I mean, what we call like the zoomies, but the zoomies for a 70-pound dog is not zoomies. It's like chaos. And
Right.
so, and he just started, I mean, the eyes dilated wide, and he just started running around the yard with an injured leg. So why do you think that happened? Was that really taking a look at, I didn't give him enough, or did I give him too much?
A lot of times it's it can be not enough, like you're kind of working up on the dose and you get at this excitatory point, and it has to do, the physiology has to do with what actually happens at the receptors inside the body. Everything is connected and everything is linked, and so you have these endocannabinoid receptors,
Mhm.
but those are linked to other receptors of say neurotransmitters, which can then relate back to some of the anxiety. And this also, just to be clear, is you're using a non-THC product. So this wasn't like he was getting stoned or paranoid or some of the things that people experience
Right.
on THC. This was CBD only. And
Right.
the dosage varies with the pet. So usually what I recommend is starting with a low dose, even as low as like a milligram per 10 pounds, which is a very low dose. I'll sometimes, depending on the pet, I might start a little higher if I know I'm going to be in close contact with people. But if you're just starting on your own, milligram per 10 pounds is pretty safe. And as you start low and work up, like say you're treating pain and you start at that dose and you don't notice any benefit, well, then you can slowly start increasing that dose, say by 50% every 4 or 5 days.
Okay.
And see, but another thing that has come out in the research is by doing that, you're waking up these receptors rather than flooding them all at once with a high dose. When you start with a low dose and slowly work up, you actually can produce more of these receptors. You're kind of waking up like, oh, this stuff's around now. We can wake up and more of these receptors become activated so that your end result actually will be better. And so you keep bumping up. So in the case of Leo, if you were using the CBD for, anxiety to help keep him quiet, and you weren't noticing any effect, and then all of a sudden he got a little anxious, I would probably bump the dose up a little bit and see. Is that what you did?
Well, yeah, that's what we ended up doing, is actually bumping his dose up. But before we did that, we actually gave him 24 hours to clean everything out.
Yeah,
To get
probably
him
a good
back
idea.
to a baseline. And then we looked at the dosages, and I ended up upping it by 150 milligrams based on his weight and what he had going on. So really taking a look at that helped out a lot. But when I'm working with Leo and getting him into that moment of just, like you said, I wanted him to be calm. I didn't want him running around. I didn't want him tearing his stitches open in his leg and all those little things that happened with it. So really hitting that right dosage, no THC involved at all. I mean, it is 100% CBD, and taking a look at the right source of it as well as taking a look at where I was actually getting the product from, is, who grew it, how did they extract the product. But I like how you had said is that you have to wake up the cannabinoidal system, is you're really waking up these receptors to receive a CBD product instead of just flooding the system and making Leo drink from the perpetual fire hose on CBD, thinking, oh, more's better. We're going to get this through. So that's really that's really good help, is on that side, is, really starting slow to figure out what is the right dose that creates that level of calm, for inside Leo or for your dog based on their weight, and creates that level of calm, and knowing how much you gave them if they do become excitable, and avoiding that or going past that again.
Right. And the other thing too is that, there's many, many different strains of the hemp plants, and all the different products are going to use a slightly different strain. So you will notice different effects. So if you try a product and you just don't have good success, you're not seeing the results you want, or you're seeing more anxiety or something that just doesn't seem right in your pet, try a different brand. They're not all the same. They actually are all quite different because the plants are different genetically. And that's where getting to know your product is really important. If I'm going to recommend products, I like to get to know the companies. I like to visit their farms. Here in Colorado, it's grown like crazy, and everything's legal here. So there's a lot of companies, new ones coming up all the time. And you really want to make sure that the hemp is grown cleanly. Hemp is an accumulator. It actually cleans the soil. It's actually used in other parts of the world to remove like heavy metals from the soil. So you don't want that hemp plant. That's you don't want your CBD being made from that hemp plant that's full of heavy metals, because that's something else to consider if your pet is having an adverse reaction, is how clean is the product to begin with. They should all be grown organically. So no chemicals, no pesticides or herbicides, anything like that. And the extraction techniques also need to be really clean. So there's no residues. I don't think it's used too much anymore, but for a while there, people were using butane as an extraction technique. And they say, oh, well, all the, residue burns off. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I wouldn't want to take that chance. So you want to be sure that it's a real clean extraction technique, and that the companies, that they know what they're doing. And this is where you have to ask. And I think it's usually pretty apparent if companies are transparent or not. You start to ask questions. A good ethical company should just be happy to give you all the information that you're interested in. If they hedge and haw, don't answer your questions directly, or don't invite you to come see their plants if they're in your area. The growers I know that are very ethical welcome people to come visit and see their plants and see how they grow. And I've been to, a couple different farms doing that. And I really appreciate that, because I'm learning about this industry too, as things go on. So actually seeing how the plants grow was quite interesting. And so you want that type of transparency, and good products do cost a little bit. It's not, it's not cheap for one of the higher, concentrations. Like if you get 1,000 milligram bottle, where, so that's 1,000 milligrams in the whole bottle. I mean, you're going to be paying around $100 for that.
Yeah.
But you don't want to buy an inferior product. If you buy a product that's a third of that cost, there's a good chance it's been diluted, or they've cut corners somewhere, because it is the case that, and of course there's companies that will try to inflate prices just to make money, but the good reputable products really do cost, and you do get what you pay for.
And, and that's what you were talking about, that sourcing piece of it. And so what we noticed early on is a lot of hemp was coming from China. So it was industrial hemp from China, which they were planting it for the reason to remove mercury and toxins out of the soil. But they realized that they could take that plant and sell it for CBD. And that was dangerous. I mean, and they're using butane extraction, they're using ethanol-based extraction. And so really you're not only pulling toxins up out of the soil that goes into the plant, you're actually adding toxins again at the point of extraction. So like you said, I love how you said that, is they should openly, when you go to their website, they should have pictures of their farm. They should be raving reviews about the farm. They should be talking about the farm. They should, get open invitations for going and seeing the farm if you want to, or, well, you might have to be a doctor or something in that, because they're not set up for tours. Because as we know, with like Brad at Cherry Green Organics up in Fort Collins, Colorado, he wants to let you know all about his farm, but the open invitation doesn't always exist because he doesn't want contaminants to actually go
Oh,
into
sure.
the greenhouse. So then when you talk to Brett or you talk to the grower, they're saying what water they're using, how they're cleaning the water, what soil, because you're talking about if the hemp plant is pulling toxins out of the soil, it's also pulling good out of the soil as well. And so, and I think that goes to pairing specific strains, one's for relaxations, one's from pain. So you're seeing these strain specifics come out with CBD, which is great to see. You're seeing the actual industry grow up and not just flood the market with CBD product. They're saying, okay, let's actually self-regulate this. If the federal government is not, or if our, the local USDA is not going to regulate the product at that way, you're seeing now the responsibility of the grower stepping into it and saying, okay, we believe in our product so much, we are going to set these standards for ourselves. And that's when I'll lean towards like an Earth Buddy or Petabis or other brands that are organic, is you're taking a look at them and knowing that they are growing it local, they're growing it specific based upon the health of what they would feed for themselves or their own pets. Right. And so it's something that we definitely looked at a lot with it.
Yep. You have to be super careful. And, I think it gets even scarier if you do like actually go into a dispensary. Mm-hmm. And so if you did, so I get this question from people, what about giving, products that have a little more THC? Because what we're talking about on this show are products that they have to be less than like 0.03% THC in order to be sold outside of the dispensary. If it goes above that, it has to be sold in a dispensary. And I've actually heard that like at least like half of the products in the dispensaries, like here in Colorado, where it's legal to grow it, are still coming from China. So you have to be really, really careful in an industry where there just isn't much regulation. And it's really hard for me to recommend those type of products, even though there can be some applications for THC. It's a little different topic, but sometimes there can be some benefit, but then finding a good product is a lot tougher because they do have to be sold in the dispensaries and they're not as widely available. So it's a little trickier, but that's the difference between the products that like we're talking about that are CBD, with just tiny amount of THC, if any, versus the products that you'll find in the dispensary. And another thing I recommend too, to look for is make sure they're using the whole plant. So not doing an isolate. So there are some products out there where they have tried to extract just the CBD or, CBG or CBN or some of these other cannabinoids. And once you start to extract, you're going to lose some of the benefit. The plants have, and this is true of the hemp plant, and I think lots of other plants, they have a lot of compounds that are designed to work synergistically. So if you try to pull that CBD out and it's not there with these other components, the other cannabinoids, and there's terpenes, and there's so many things in the plant that are meant to work synergistically, I think you're going to lose a lot of the benefit. So you don't want a product where they're trying to isolate certain components of the plant. You want products that use the whole plant, but I do also recommend that it's extracted. There are some products out there that literally just have the ground up plant, but you're going to get more benefit if you actually do use an extraction process, because you don't just putting the whole plant into your digestive tract, you're not necessarily going to get as much benefit as if somebody that knows what they're doing is extracting those constituents from the plant.
Yep. And so two of the extraction processes that I look for when I do buy CBD is hydrogen-based extraction is one. That's what Cherry Green Organics uses up in Fort Collins. And then a CO2-based extraction, because CO2 being just a carbon dioxide is not going to put those toxins into the actual bottle itself. So really staying away from anything chemical-based, butane, ethanol. And they have to actually put that on the back of the label, how they extracted the product, or the person you're buying it from, ask them that question. Now, they may come at it, like you said, and say, oh, it gets cooked out, there's no problem with it. But I think that's a little sales speak when they kind of come at it from that angle. And I don't think that they're giving you all the benefits. It's kind of like on our food when they spray glyphosate, which is Roundup, on our grain product. They're like, oh, that gets cooked out or that has no effect. Even though today we're seeing ramifications of what's happening with autoimmune conditions and all this stuff that's coming up with glyphosate being sprayed so heavily, not only on our food, but on our lawns, even though Monsanto would tell you, oh, there's nothing wrong with it.
Right, is perfectly safe.
Yeah, perfectly safe. Uh-huh. Yeah. And so really when you look at all that, I think CBD can follow along that same
Yeah.
thread as
And
well.
companies should also be able to provide you with a certificate of analysis too. They should be
Mhm.
having an independent lab analyzing their final product and telling you like what constituents are in there. Are there
Mhm.
any heavy metals? Are there any toxins? That should all be tested before it goes out to market. And so companies, so that's another question to ask.
Mhm.
They should have those analyses, and they should be doing it fairly frequently, not just like, oh, well, we did it, 6 months ago,
Right.
because every batch can be different. So you want to make sure they're
Mhm.
doing those analyses on a regular basis.
So really, I mean, the basis of this show is CBD is beneficial. Know where you're getting it from and really, ask those questions. Do you have an independent study with an analysis that is actually showing where your CBD came from, and really having the company that you're buying it from? um, I usually check to see how much transparency they have. Are they open to sharing where they grow it, how they extract it, what other things, and are they doing those independent studies on their product at a regular interval cycle? And if you're following that thing, when you go to buy it, and make sure it's, I like organic because that tells me they can't put chemicals, fertilizers and all that stuff in the soil when they grow it, or they're using water that has a bunch of chemicals in it. If they're using what what's it what do you when you grow in water is
Oh, hydroponics.
hydroponics. This is how much I
Mm.
know about, yeah, about growing marijuana. So but it's not, and it's a big thing too, is CBD is not marijuana. CBD does not and should not have, really, a straight CBD should have very limited, such small amounts, it's not even recognizable, of THC in the product. So that's something that we received a lot when we were selling it is, well, is this marijuana that I'm giving my dog? And the answer is no, it's not.
Mm-hmm.
You're giving hemp. Hemp is completely different. And when they grow it, and this is something that I learned from Brett, is Brett's like, no, 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 when I grow my plants, there is no THC in the plant. I am actually not registered or certified to grow THC products. So I have to make sure every plant I grow has no THC, or it meets that min level of 0.003 that you had described. So really, CBD is extremely beneficial for your pet.
Yeah, and it's very safe too. We talked about might need to adjust the dosing if you notice that excitatory reaction, but
Mhm.
there's nothing, you're not going to be damaging your pet's body in any way like other pharmaceuticals
Mhm.
that will damage the liver, damage the kidneys. You're not going to do any harm to your pet. Even if your pet got a really big dose and say they were really dozy, really out of it, they got
Yeah,
extra, you accidentally gave them a double dose or
sure.
something like that, there's not going to be any long-term damage. Once that wears off, there's not going to be any long-term damage. It's extremely safe. There's almost no toxicity level
Yeah.
for CBD in pets. So that's something that I love about it, is because we're not doing any harm. It has so much benefit
Yeah.
and is just so very safe.
And I love this show and I love this topic because you're talking about something that can benefit your pet if they have cancer, if they're in pain, if they're aging and they have sore muscles and arthritis and inflammation. You can give them a product that has no long-term ramifications, and something that is essentially healthy and benign, and you can follow that philosophy of do no harm to your pet and if they're giving you something. So it's, it's something that, is readily available. I mean, I think CBD itself, I think is, can go out to most states are open for having CBD in their state. Now, as long as it doesn't have THC, but yes, CBD is openly sold. So yes, you can get it. And so I definitely highly, highly recommend. And based on what Dr. Judy just said, it is an approved product for your pet and everything that goes through. And so just know where they're growing it and know the source of it, know how they're extracting it. And, read up on the dosages of what's actually safe for your pet. On most products, it'll say on the back of the bottle of how much they recommend.
And, so if your pet does have a medical condition, it's always a good idea to find a medical professional that has some knowledge of CBD that can help guide you through that, because there are some medications that you may need to lower the dose on if you're giving CBD, because they use the same enzyme pathway to break them down. So there's competition for those enzymes, and so you give the CBD and they'll actually metabolize the medication more slowly, and so you may need to decrease the dosage. So it is always good to find a medical professional. If your pet, if you have an older pet and they're, a little arthritic and you're just trying to help with pain, then you could probably get some and try some dosages. But if your pet has an underlying medical condition, I would suggest finding a professional that has experience with CBD that can help you.
And I think that's a great point to make. I'm glad you said that, because yes, it's always number one, go see your vet, talk to your vet, and somebody that trust, and like Dr. Judy, that understands all the ins and outs of CBD and really how to actually dose it and look at it and make sure that there's no interactions with other medication that you may be giving. So Dr. Judy, thank you for today's show. And how can everybody that's watching the show, how can they find you?
Well, my practice is Animal Healing Arts. My website is ahavet.com. The email is info@ahavet.com. And our phone number is 720-515-2421.
Wonderful. And reach out to Dr. Judy. She can be that point of contact for you to finding what CBD, and actually have a conversation with you that's open about what is the right product to use and what is a good dosage to use. So definitely, I trust her, and she's an incredible doctor. So thank you very much for watching the show today. I'm Matt Rowe. I'm with ParsleyPet, and you can find out your dog's nutrient levels and see if you're feeding your dog the proper diet to promote ultimate health and to get your dog to live longer, healthier, and happier life by feeding your dog the right way. So you can find us at ParsleyPet.com. And also, you can always email us at hello@ParsleyPet.com if you want to know more about the nutritional blueprint that we offer. So thank you again, Dr. Judy, for this week's show. And I hope everybody has an incredible day today.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Always happy to be here.
Oh, it's so much fun. I love doing this show. See you guys.
All right. Bye, everybody.